We are live. We are live. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Pontificators program. Yes, this is where we have 4 panelists that chime in on varying subjects. And Todd is looking around for who those subjects are.
We have 4. I can't count.
Yeah, who are these subjects and what are we going to talk about? So let me introduce everybody. So I'm RT Bear. We have Zach. Say hi, Zach.
Hello.
Hello. We have 2 Todds. We have the twin Todds today. So we have Todd DeWolf.
Oh, hi, that's me. Oh my goodness, I was expecting you to say Todd Mulrooney.
No, I'm going in order of the screen.
I just thought I got first billing.
Wow. How do you feel about that, Todd Mulrooney?
Typey. He knows what that means.
Oh yeah. Typey.
Okay, so I guess you're doing okay, DeWolf.
Yeah, doing good. I got some important things to be doing. A family event, I guess you could say. There's a little business meeting tomorrow, so I'm kind of hyped up on what's going to happen with that. And we'll be leaving out as soon as we're done with the show. I'll be heading down to prepare for that. Do some traveling.
Oh, very cool. Well, hey, thank you so much for sitting in for Chester Busby III. Much appreciated. Appreciate it. So we have the mainstay of the program, the big stability of Todd Mulrooney. How are you, Todd?
Oh, I'm doing really good. Hey, everyone. Glad to be here.
So very good. So everybody, we didn't do a show last week, right?
No.
And we did do one the week before. Is that right?
And Todd joined us because Zach was missing.
Right. So, and then that was the one. Oh, go ahead.
He was in the fetal position, we heard.
Yep, I was in the fetal position.
That's what Zach was sharing with us before. And since DeWolf is eating, I'll be eating as well. I'm going to eat this whole box of delicious zingers.
Did you know that zingers are fortified with nothing?
Well, it's supposed to be such a great show. I've been looking forward to this show, and I thought, hey, what do you have with a good show? And that's popcorn. So I got some popcorn while I can enjoy what's going on as well as participate.
Okay, last time you had a Subway sandwich or something, right?
Pass me in peace. Something.
It won't go.
Oh.
There you go. Yeah, I had a sandwich. I got that sandwich down right before the show to save the audience, but this is popcorn.
You can eat that and talk, just like I'm eating a zinger and talking.
Mm-hmm.
Poor Zach has nothing to eat.
No.
Are you working, Zach? What are you doing?
Yeah, I'm working.
Are you taking what they're giving because you're working for a living?
Yep, that's the way it is. The grind. My computer's about to die. It's old, so I'm doing a lot of traditional stuff.
Are you putting Band-Aids on it right now?
Oh, it's got all the Band-Aids it needs. Every fan in it has died. I have a giant fan literally blowing into it just to make sure that it doesn't overheat. And so that's my life. That's my life.
Oh, just as we're BSing before we get into the main subject, hey, Mulrooney.
Yeah.
I have seen those ink drawings that you're posting for Inktober. Spectacular. No, really, really good, dude.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, they're nice.
I did, I don't normally do those doe eyes. You know the doe eyes I'm talking about because you do them. And so I looked at you see your work and I'm like, okay, I like his eyes. And I put them on a few characters. And I don't normally, I usually go realistic, but I'm trying to lean everything towards more comic book cartoony because the more realistic you are, you're stuck there.
Yeah.
I mean, you end up stuck and everything has to fit. And everything has to sort of look like it's also real. So when
it's very rigid, yeah.
Right. When you do a car or you do whatever, you're continuing that. And I find that to be tedious and kind of boring. So I'm really I know this is a dumb word, but I'm kind of leaning my style back towards, more, it's like cartoony work. Not cartoony, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, more. Yeah. Well, no, it makes total sense because what I did is all my training is realistic. So I studied to be an illustrator, and that's what I worked as before comic books. So very, very realistic. So models, photographs, the whole 9 yards. So when I started doing comic books, I took that same training into comic books, and it soon failed me miserably. And so I was so reliant on photographs and things. In the day, the only way you can get instant feedback is Polaroids. The Polaroid film, even in the day, was $1 per film, and you'd only get 10 in a cartridge.
Mhm.
So some panels could have 10 images in them. You know what I mean? So it became quite expensive to do. So just out of cost effectiveness, I backed off. I stopped using the photo reference as much and things like that. So then I tried to do that for maybe 10 years or so. And then I found it very hard. And with chrono mechanics, when I started doing that 10, 15 years ago, I started really looking at cartoonists and how they do things and how they block shapes out, and how, like, if it's more of a square head, they'll start with a literal square. You know what I mean? If it's an oval head, they'll start with a literal. They don't try, because everything I learned is like, build it up from the skeleton. Everything is, the anatomy of everything and blah, blah, blah. And not everything does that. And I was having a hard time, like, how do you do this structure based on this same realistic way of doing it? So then I started getting into the cartooning aspects. I started learning shorthand ways of doing things. Like, this is this body type, it's the pear shape. So you'd literally do a pear shape, a squared off head. You'd literally do a square shape. And so, go ahead.
I had kind of an epiphany also while doing this, right? Because I did 2 villains, or I might have done more, but I did that Bizarro one, and then today for pattern I did Jigsaw, and I realized while doing this that these villains are way more interesting because they're so juxtaposed to reality. Like Jigsaw has that one big eye, almost like Two-Face, and of course. Bizarro's face is full of character, and to me, I'm like, you know what? This is the perfect, real reason why I need to do this, because my villains will get more interesting. They'll be more fun to draw, right? Because a realistic villain, and you're drawing them from every angle, you could get kind of tedious and boring. But imagine sitting there getting to draw Two-Face for a whole book. Maybe you've drawn him 10, 15 times. To me, that's interesting. That gets me kind of motivated and kind of keeps me passionate. Whereas a realistic villain,
Wow. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yes.
Can I squeeze in a little self-promotion on the Inktober myself?
Ooh.
Sure. Go for it.
The artist that I'm working with, Joseph White, he is knocking it out the ballpark with his Inktober. And what he's doing, though, he's doing it something special for the book that is forthcoming, Book of Elves, and every piece is also a promotional piece for that book. So for the campaign, he's creating something every day that matches what we're going to be doing there. It's a great idea. He's creating so much material that we'll be able to use during the campaign, and phenomenal works of art.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I like phenomenal works of art.
And he's doing it all on like an iPad too, isn't he?
Is he?
Yeah,
No,
I think.
No.
Is it
He's non-traditional.
Yeah.
No way.
So they're all original works of art.
He's up on me like 8-2. Really, he's really been doing some great stuff. So he's winning by 8. Well, by 6.
Uh-huh.
Are you meeting every day deadline for Inktober?
I did 2 today because I didn't do one yesterday. I did Jigsaw and Captain Cold. Okay. Well, you guys, we're all caught up. It's been a while, so we're all catching up. And Zach, you were in last week. You were in Drawn and Quartered, right?
Yeah, I had the pleasure of actually being invited as a pro, not like winning the fan edition, which was this incredible thing. That's a really huge difference from like, you winning your way there as opposed to just getting a message saying, hey, would you like to come join us? That's
right.
Like an extremely exciting thing. So I jumped on and then from there, go ahead.
I saw your black Canary, right?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it was really nice. Yeah.
Yeah, two things I want to say, because you brought up a thing in the chat or a chat. Two things I want to say, right?
Mhm.
Zach's incredible. We'll just leave it there. And
Mm.
your shows have gotten better. I've been watching Art. Your shows have gotten really good.
Oh, thank you. I'm
Yeah,
trying.
you're getting the hang of this, and these
Right,
past 2 or 3 weeks have been really, really good.
Well, thank you. We're doing the Brady
Great
Bunch.
guy.
Oh, this guy. No, this guy. Oh, this guy. Yeah. No, that's the fun part. Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Can I just say one thing real quick though? And
Only-
it's positive. I'm
Yeah.
keeping everything I say today will be positive. I haven't said anything negative. I wanted to say thank you everybody who has supported me throughout this whole entire debacle. All the drama has been wonderful. I would please ask people to support everybody else because everybody did wonderful. And even John did an awesome piece. Okay, so just overall, everybody did awesome. Despite
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, there were a lot.
despite the drama, everybody did awesome. And me and John are fine. We're not enemies or anything because I was being very vocal about, like, you know, every time he'd promote himself, I would say, no, don't do this and stuff. But it's just normal stuff. Everything's good. Everything's fine. No drama. So.
Yeah, I did a show earlier and just how we have to get past that and we need to stay strong and we need to stay united. So not just the people on, you know, on this tier, but the people here and the people here, because everything is such an ecosystem. We're all reliant on each other. And so I don't really make a distinction between, you know, what we're doing here or anything else. So, and everybody's always welcome. And I don't have any boundaries. So I go wherever I want. And as long as somebody doesn't turn on me, I think everything will be fine. You know, we are only as strong as the weakest link, right?
And at the end of the day, this is still escapism media. This is comics, folks. This is not all this other things that are tied to it. Don't mean a hill of beans. You got good product, people will help you. You know, if your product will rise. If it's good, it'll rise. It doesn't matter what it is that's bogging it down. Once word gets out, oh my God! Like, for instance, T-Bird and Throttle. I don't know if you're aware of this book, Art.
That's a great looking book. Yes.
Nobody has ever said, "Oh, it's not written well." It's written so good. Art doesn't matter. He wrote a good story, and that's rising to the top. And people can't wait for the next one. And that's ultimately what you got to do is just, you know, this whole nonsense of building an audience and building a base, and we do this, we're doing that. You know what? Good product, I will help you. We'll get you on Anycom TV. Art will help you. If it's good, we want people to see it.
Yeah, look at this, Art. He's already slipping into how we're going to make comics, you know, better and good, and what the future is already.
There we go, and that's what the topic of the show is. So thank you for leading us into that, DeWolf. I'm going to call you DeWolf just so I don't say Todd, so people don't get confused. Is that okay? Okay.
Everyone does it.
All righty. So yeah, so the topic today is that we're going to talk about the pluses, the good things, where the industry is going, where trends are happening. Basically, we're going to project, the four of us are going to project into how the industry is going to survive and how things, you know, the good things that are going to get us to those destinations. So the episode before this, we were kind of doing a lot of beatdown stuff. So we were kind of pointing out negative, bad trends, things like that. I thought we did a pretty good job of that. So I hope that we can equally, you know, balance it out with some good things, because I don't know about you guys, but I got 35 years invested in this and I ain't going nowhere. So my whole adult life has been comic books, and I would love to see this, you know, continue forever for new generations. So where do you guys want to start? You want to start, Zach?
Well, can I point out one tweet that happened this week before we start, right?
All right.
One interesting tweet, because I've approached Casada many a times and said, hey, be honest about the numbers, be honest about the industry. You always get everything's fine. His best friend in the whole world tweets this week, we have to start doing everything we can to save the local comic book shop. That was his tweet. Everything we can to save them, because he must know something that of course we do know. I mean, I'm not saying we don't know it, but he knows that the handwriting is on the wall. And if they go away, then everyone will be doing this boutique sort of comics, or comics that are direct marketed. And you won't, if the comic book shop goes away, so will Diamond, and then you'll be getting your comics in the mail from Marvel again.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how that. Well, we'll keep that on the table, because I was going to say I don't know how we can save the retailers, but maybe you guys have solutions. Maybe you guys can see the trends. So let's go with that, Todd.
That's hard, because I don't know if I really do have solutions. But I just wanted to point out, you got one guy who's always spouting off that everything is fine, and his best friend in the world is saying, no, it's not. We got to help the local comic book shop. And to me, that's sort of a dichotomy that I don't understand, because the one thing as a business, right, as say, just we're speaking of Marvel, okay? So as a business, if your line or your books are all doing this, and the numbers are failing you, and you're always, like, for instance, come on, how many Captain Marvel #1s have there been in the last, like, 10 years? They've redone her. And I'm not saying they've been bad teams. I'm not saying the art hasn't been great, because it has. Stefano Caselli has done some of those issues. Really good artists. So it's not that. But maybe you haven't made a character that's interesting enough, because if it was, she'd be on issue 50 and not on her 7th #1.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think anytime you reboot, you don't have confidence in the product, period. So I think, and I believe there's been enough, people have been around long enough to understand these trends. So when they see a #1 in the day, you used to get excited. You go, oh, it's a brand new series. This is cool, But now it almost feels like correction, or that they have to try to make everything brand new again, so people will come in and spend more money, instead of going, this is issue 57 of a run, or 157, like Todd McFarlane with Spawn. There's a lot of pride in there, that he had a consecutive run, and he's very proud of those numbers, and I think we should. Fantastic Four, there's been books that have continued numbering for 70 years or whatever it's been. Has it been 70 years? Not for Marvel, but 50 years or so. Yeah. So so where do you think we're going to go from here? You brought up, Todd, retailers. How do you think the delivery service is going to change for the future? And then I'll ask Zach, and I'll ask DeWolf the same question.
I think the thing that retailers have been asking for the most is returnability. That's a given. We've seen that. I've seen the articles. I've seen the headlines. They want to be able to return books that haven't been sold. Get a credit for incoming books, and then let those numbers speak for themselves, because a lot of times the numbers that are used are units that are shipped, not units that are bought. And those numbers are deceiving. So the retailer gets stuck with so much product that doesn't move, because it was kind of forced on them. Hey, if you want that variant cover, if you want 10 of those, then you got to order 100 of these. And that doesn't help the retailer. But at least if they had returnability in blocks of 10, say, right? You can return 10, 20, or 30 or 40 or whatever it is. At least they have something, but they don't have that ability right now.
Well, that's how it used to be. It used to be where comics would ship to the newsstand and they'd be returnable, because in my day you could go to the swap meet and see comic books without a cover on it. And so what they would have to do is they'd rip the cover off, and then they would send it back, and then they would either get a credit or their money back for the book. So the reason that's good, and just to enhance what you were saying, Todd, is that then the retailer isn't stuck with product, and then it forces the manufacturer, the publisher, to sell to the people and not to a retail store. Because what it is now is it's a comic producing company, Marvel DC, and they're selling directly to retailers. So they're not selling to the customers that are buying the book. They're selling to the retailer. So all they have to do is get the retailer on the hook. And so we've seen time and time again where they're kind of abusing that, because the end product doesn't matter if the consumer likes it or not. The retailer's stuck with that part of it. The publisher really isn't. As long as they can convince the retailer to spend money on their product, they're gold. They get the money. It's a sure amount of money, and the retailer is stuck with selling through on the product. So then Zach, how do you see this going? How do you see this trend, or in a positive spin?
In a positive spin. Well, I mean, it for me, it's a problem of publishers not producing unique, cool things that people want to buy in the first place. It's just like, I don't even know when the last time I actually went to a specific comic book shop to get a comic. If I go to a comic shop, it's mostly because I had to call that comic shop to order a very specific graphic novel that I want, and they had to order it. But nowadays, I don't even have to do that. I can just go to Amazon and grab it. And also it's just the price is ridiculous for trades and paperbacks. Well, not trades. Trades are actually pretty good. Paperbacks, and it comes back to Peter. What he's doing. I think we just need more of that.
Okay.
So I think it's like this kind of vicious circle of events of things where people aren't getting products that they want. So they're not buying the thing. And it's also, even if there is a product they want, they're like, am I going to spend $5 on this little paperback, as opposed to alternative that'll, $1.50, and whatnot. So it's just, even if they make something that's interesting, the price doesn't sell.
Right. So how do you feel, DeWolf? And let's keep an emphasis on that. We're trying to figure out how things are going and how things can get better, or the good things about some of these. It's kind of easy to go into that one direction of the problems, but I think it's good just for context that we are addressing some of the issues, so then we can start talking about solving those problems as well. So go ahead.
Well, okay, I'm trying to think of. I should have just kept notes. Todd said something about how the retailers have to have certain books, and then they become the vacuum salesman to try to sell that book. Then, right? They become the distribution system, the vacuum salesman to sell those books that are out there that they have to get at that point. And then there's something that came out, at some point called the pull list. So I think that was a fix, right? So we want to start talking about fixes and things are going to make this a better world, or what the future is going to go to. I think the pull list was one of those ideas that people came up with to say, hey, I now know I'm going to be able to sell these, right? So the retailer figured out a way that they can create the idea of making sure that they get a solid set of money. And then on top of that, now they have to just sell all the rest of them that are on the shelf, right?
Right.
So it's possible that a new idea like that has to happen with the comic shop as well, because they've been complaining about pull lists, because now people will give them a pull list and then they'll have $3,000 worth of pull lists. It's not even sold. And I think that comes back down to the excitement of comic books. Somewhere along the way, the excitement of comic books itself has gone away. And when you have movies like the MCU coming out and now Joker and stuff, there should be a level of excitement, and there are people that are going in to look for comic books, but they're not getting anything out of it. There's a complete disconnect between the media. And I think that this is one of those things that actually makes one of those. It's a solution to a problem that's going on over there. Wait, I'm sorry, Todd. It's going on over there because with them, they don't have a connection to the comic book world with other media. Here we have other media and a connection to the comic book, right? You have the creator
Right.
and the comic book. It's fun now for the fan to be involved because he can talk to you, he can interact with you, and get your comic book. And I think that's part of this that's missing out of the LCS.
So do you think just to do you think like the delivery service for comic books is something that needs to change or is changing in a more positive way? Because you're talking about going direct to consumers, going direct to the readers. Do you think there's a disconnect between like the producer, the comic book, the distributors, and then the retailers?
I think that it's that media connection once again. I think what's missing in that connection isn't the direct distribution, it's direct marketing. There's not a marketing plan where the Marvel and DC can actually put out information to the local comic stores. Goodness, that was a bad piece of popcorn. In which now they generate interest the way that we're generating interest. Excuse me.
Get one of those little kernel things flat
exactly
on your throat. Yeah.
That's exactly. It got flat right there.
Popcorn is almost the perfect food, with the exception of those little things, right?
Yeah. Something Zach said too. He talked about Alterna. So, and this goes along with that six of I think the excitement of it in a bit, because he talked about Alterna and that's the price of it. The reason why it's priced is because it's newsprint. Newsprint, right, is completely gone away. It's said to be inferior, this, that, or the other. But there's no reason why newsprint. It's the ability to have a cheaper availability of getting comics and producing them in that particular fashion can't still work. It's just been it's been moved away from.
Right.
And it goes back to demand, right? So mass marketing and media is creating demand, and they're not fulfilling demand. And I think it all comes down to fulfilling demand, which is what, right? It's this model that we have going on now.
The hardest thing for anyone to ever do in business is go, guess what? You know what? I can lower my price by doing this. The hardest thing. It's when have you ever seen comics go lower? Well, actually, it happened once. That was in the 90s. They did go from $2.99 to $2.50. It was like a gimmicky thing. Like certain things, like A-list books for $2.50, and then sort of B-list books.
And then they got the world's worst artists to be on those books.
Right. But it is one of those things that's really hard. Personally, if you like, your strategy needs to be something. Your strategy needs to pull people in, right? So one thing you need to do is, and I don't know if anyone's listening, but get rid of the whole idea of the variant incentive, because every time I go to a comic book show, every publisher's there with those variants. So you can't tell me they're not printed in the same amounts as the regular issue. The idea that the variant is printed in less, less copies, I don't believe it for a minute. I think they're pulling the wool over your eyes. So why don't they just stop with the variant incentive in the stores and say, hey, we have plenty of variants. Come to your local comic book con, wherever you can get to, and come get the variants. The stores will only get one cover, one copy, and that'll help. Because that incentive idea of a variant kills the retailer, and really, to me, kind of kills comics. But if I knew there were variants I wanted and I could go get them at the con, I'd go, because they're there. Every time I go, I see a couple of variants like you wouldn't believe. So you can't tell me.
Yeah, I think it's two things going on. Like, I want to try to focus it. So DeWolf brought up paper and then pricing, and also we were talking about retailing or delivery service for the consumer. So I want to keep those two things on the table and try to focus it in. But what you were saying is, like, as far as the variants, I think there's the collector, the comic book collector, and then there's just a comic book reading group of people, right? So
Yeah.
they're kind of similar, but not similar. So one is catering to a collectible market, right? So those are more the high end things. So variants of stuff unto themselves aren't necessarily a bad thing when there's variety of stuff. Or to bring it back to DeWolf, if there was a alternative to that, like a less expensive alternative. So excuse me, you have your high-end collectible books, right? But then you also have not so much entry level, it's the only word I can think of, but you have your books that are more entry level at a lower price. And also, for the lack of a better term, more disposable. Because when I was a kid, comic books were disposable, right? They were a dime, they were 15 cents, they were 25 cents. You rolled them up, you put them in your pocket, you climbed a tree, you shared them with your friends shared them with you. We weren't thinking about this was going to be worth money. We didn't think about conditions. We didn't have backing boards. We didn't have any of those things. So we read the hell out of these books and we enjoyed them, and we want our friends to read them too. So these things were being enjoyed the way they're meant to be enjoyed. They're being consumed, and they're literally being loved to death. You know what I mean? Like, that's why a lot of those books, those older books, are worth a lot of money, because people just didn't treat them very well.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say it that way. They loved them to death. They literally read them till the covers fell off. They shared them with their friends, you know, all those things, because there wasn't this perceived value to them. They were just entertainment. So could there be both? Could there be a book that just exists for people to read and enjoy and not go any deeper into it? They're not collectors, but then have a collectible side as well. Do you think if there was something like that, that would be a positive thing to move forward?
Think about it for 1 second, Art. Imagine if you did do that. Imagine if you had a high-end comic and then a low-end comic, and you're Marvel and you're putting these out. Take a step forward in that and think about this for a moment. Which one of those do you think actually would become the collectible in another 20 years?
That's a great question. It would be the lower end stuff.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah. And that's that's a great positive point. Yes. And oh my gosh, you actually made the hairs rise on my arm. That is a great insight right there. And that could change. The biggest problem is in the marketing, because you wouldn't want to make it seem like somebody was getting less of a product. But the thing is, if there was a price break that was significantly different, like you can buy a car, right? You could buy a low-end car, you could go Honda or you know, Toyota or whatever, but then there's Mercedes, there's Porsche, there's, you know, Audi, there's all these different, you know, you can spend $1 billion, you could spend, you know, 20,000, you know what I mean? There's all those in between. So maybe instead of comic books trying to cater to just, you know, we have a set price and then we have our trades and then we have this. What if there were different price breaks in these comic books? I think we're getting onto something right now. So what if there was for the lack of a better term, a entry level book, you know, but still have good talent on it, still have great writing, still have, like, don't, you know, because the thing is, like, if you try to make a kiddie line, you know, like, kids don't want to read anything that's directed at them. If you have a line that's directed at, oh, this is good for ladies or women or whatever, they don't want to read that. Nobody wants to read stuff that's like catered to them, or I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I really don't think people want that. People just want good entertainment in general. So if you had, I mean, the high-end book would obviously, the production values, things like that would be the best of the best. Variant covers, Todd, variant covers, all those things there for the high-end collector. And then have an entry-level tier for kids, for parents, for, you know, parents that want to buy, you know, superhero comics or action adventure comics for children. So then you could have both as far as a line. Do you think if retailers had more entry-level books that were less expensive, that they could maybe market to more of just the average person, you know, that only has a couple bucks maybe for a book versus $4 or $5 for a book? Do you think that could change things? Zach, you haven't spoke. What do you think?
Well, yeah, but you gotta put it in places that they're gonna find it, though. Is I think the biggest problem. It's because most of the time parents don't want to just go to a comic book shop with their kids. Just take it unless the parent is into comics.
Right.
So it's like it's getting a comic in a place where you take your kids, normally like a grocery store or drugstore, whatever is around, and it's getting it in front of them in that way. Because I guarantee that even if you didn't have entry level comics per se, if you had comics just in places where they can at least be seen, so that people know that's an option.
You need a
I
spinner rack
guarantee
at the
that would be-
Starbucks.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So wait,
Yeah.
let me try to hammer that point. Okay, so do you think that if there was maybe the entry level books were sold in mass, like supermarkets, things like that, and then the high end collectible stuff, maybe the retailer could have both, but you do make a conscious effort for that entry level book to be sold in a more universal way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that would necessarily help retailers, but it could help, get more people into comics. You guys, what do you think about that?
Well, the visibility would probably be key in helping comics, but that you want, first off, as an adult, adults aren't going to go to you're not going to get your books at the convenience store because you don't want them multi-handled, right? Am I right?
The collector, right?
So
Yeah.
you gotta gear that product for those type of consumers.
Exactly.
Whether they may be teens or younger, but you get to a certain age, this may be why, partly why this went this direction, because collectability, you don't want fingerprints and you know what I mean? You don't want all that stuff, all sneezes and wrinkle. I used to buy wrinkled copies all the time of stuff, right, from the convenience store. But I when I became serious about it, I wouldn't have.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Hey, look who's here, Peter.
Yes. Hey, Peter, how are you? Yeah, I think Peter's not just talking about this stuff, but he's putting action behind it. And personally, back on the retailer idea is this is personal, and I don't think this is a very popular point of view, but I don't know if the specialty store is the way of the future. I'm go ahead, Todd.
Could you do like a handable, like one copy that's like people can touch, but you can only touch one, and all the other ones are in sealed?
Yeah.
Because the week before comic book stores get a copy, right? And it's up at the I don't know if they still do this, but the last time I went, you get the stuff that's coming out next week. Why couldn't that be stuff that's handled anyway? It's already handled by the ton, and then everything else is sealed, because you kind of need to do that if you're going to go back into convenience stores and
it's
get
the
gas.
demo model.
Yeah, like a demo model.
It's the test drive. Yeah.
Test drive it. Yeah, you can check it out so you don't damage it or whatever. So you still have a pristine copy for the collector. You could also do collector packs. You could have your high-end version maybe marketed and packed with the lower end one, so you could read the one and then you could collect the other. So you could maybe market like a twofer type of book where one is like a reading copy and the other one is a collectible copy. Give options that way. But I think as far as retail, I'm really not sure where that's going to go. I don't want to ever see those things go away. A reader copy, Peter Smetty says. I don't ever want to see those things go away. But you know what? As far as my childhood, comic shops weren't part of the equation. I'm old enough to remember I didn't get my comic books really at comic book shops. It was later that those things came out. So I really was buying books off newsstands, and I was going to every place that had them. So I would go to this liquor store, I'd go to this Five and Dime, and I would go over to this supermarket, and I knew basically their ordering tastes. So I knew I could get some of my Marvels over here, and I can get my DCs here. I could get my Harvey Tunes. I could get whatever at these various places because they didn't always order the same. So I'm just not really sure that retailers are going to serve the community as well as maybe they once did.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why that model went away, because, it went from having to carry, let's say 20 things a week to carrying 50 things a week, and they just didn't have the space.
Or 150 things. There's a lot of books. Yeah.
Right. But there was obvious reasons why the idea of these things in convenience stores or drugstores or even supermarkets went away, because it was too much to keep track of, too much to handle, too many things, and they just couldn't service all customers.
Yes. Yeah. I'm gonna throw this out there, and I'm gonna say this because I'm gonna start going in a different direction here, and I know this is not gonna be popular, but I gotta throw this out there first. Donnie says, "Art is old." Confirmed. Yeah, I am, and you know what? I don't care, because comics were cool. I remember the Marvel Universe just happening before my childhood eyes. So, this is my unpopular view: is computer is getting these PDFs or these downloadable books into people's hands. The reason why marketing isn't as expensive, most of these retail outlets aren't even marketing. They're not even advertising that they exist in the communities that they're at. Uh-huh. So the internet is relatively inexpensive in relationship to, a brick and mortar. Also, you can have more books, available at a click than you can in a comic book shop. So you can have a bigger variety. And also, you have a world market. The internet is international. It's not just regional. So you can sell books to everybody. I've said this before, and I'm going to say it here on the channel, and anybody wants to rip this off and use this idea, go for it. There's a quote by Prince, and I think Prince the singer, and David Bowie, and they said, innovation is never going to come from a corporation. Innovation is never going to come from a record company. Innovation is going to come from people like
that was my next point.
Us right now. Okay, So, but this is the idea. You have Marvel and DC universe, right? You could unify the entire universe at a click of a button. So if Marvel set up, and I'm not talking about DC doing that kind of half-ass thing that they did with New 52. They had the right mind, and they put money into advertising, but you have to go in, you have to go all in, and you have to go long-term. You can't just advertise for 6 months or 8 months. You have to advertise for years. You have to keep those campaigns going. Coca-Cola doesn't stop advertising because they don't have to. They advertise all the time. They never stop. Okay, so you can never stop advertising. So let's just use the Marvel universe as an example. So let's say Marvel wanted to do online comic books. Seriously, do it. Well, at a click of a button, okay, you know how comic books would reference other comic books. So there'd be a narrative or an editorial note. It'd say, to see what we're referencing, go to X whatever number of Spider-Man, and then you can find that. Well, when I was a kid, I had to either find a friend, or if comic book shops did exist and they had back issues, you could go there and you could go through back issues and you can find that book. It was relatively hard to do, okay? But now, at a click of a button, you could reference something that is a contemporary book. You could reference something from 1961. You know what I mean? At a click of a button, not only can you reference it, but you could also go to it. So let's talk about the monetary aspects of this. Okay. Well, before that, okay, let's say it's the Marvel Universe again. Well, you have an organization, a spy organization called SHIELD, right? So you could have SHIELD files. And then you could have always present on every page, if there's something you don't know, you could click on that and there'll be an index. And you can go like, who's Black Widow? Brrr, bop, Black Widow. Files say, you know, the SHIELD files on Black Widow say XYZ. So then, you know how they always say, oh, if you're buying a comic now, there's 50 years of history. How is anybody going to know all this stuff? Well, this is a way that you could do it. And also, you can reference who these characters are, so you don't always have to explain constantly who they are, which makes for boring comics, especially if it's, you know, in sequence or serialized. So they could do that. They could click on, you know, and find out who these characters are, but they could also click on adventures that are either related to that adventures or that this adventure directly references. And when they click on that, it could have a PayPal or some kind of button that it hits, it's monetized, boom, they get charged, they go to that comic. Could you imagine the nonstop reading if you had this as a kid or even today? If it was a series I liked, if there was something, and I could just sit and I could boom, 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 I could bop all around and reference all these different books and all this different stuff going on at a click of a button, you would probably even lose that you were being charged $1 a download or whatever. You know what I mean? You'd get so enthralled in the story and that you could multi-do this stuff. I think then this is the idea is I only have like really the Marvel Universe how to do this, but basically they could connect the entire Marvel Universe at the click of a button, and that's exactly how I'd market it. The entire Marvel Universe at a click of a button, everything could be yours. You could do it as a subscription or as a download, whichever one, you know, you think you could do better. So I have other ideas about that, but how do you guys feel about something like that?
Well, you made me think of something that never really took on and never really, but they could have used it this way that you're talking. The AR codes, they could have used the AR as like index and reference and stuff, like you're saying, like, hey, you know, you might be a little lost if you pick up this issue, but here, go here, you know, just stick your phone on this or whatever, and then we'll give you some where you're at, some backstory, you know, maybe a little flash animation of panels that were in other books. That would be awesome. Can you imagine using your phone?
Wait, I'm getting excited. Okay, hold everybody's thought. No one else can do that. Movies can't do that. Other books can't do that. Comic books can do that because they're serialized and they reference itself constantly. If it's a universe, you could do this. Absolutely no problem. So somebody was going to speak. Was it DeWolf or... I'm sorry.
Maybe what one thing you talked about there was microtransactions, right? That's what that's called. For just a little bit of something else, I'm going to give you more and more and more. Those are microtransactions. Some people are fine with that. Other people completely drives them out of their mind. And if you're going to do that, I think, you sparking a gamer term, is there a way you can throw in some loot boxes too, so that after you read so much, you then, you know, your superhero gets a new power or whatever it is.
Right, you could actually credit it. So if you have so many downloads, then you get an access to a secret book or a secret story or anything. It could be so crazy interactive. And the thing is, movies can't do it, and video games can't even do it because they're so damn expensive and then so time-consuming to do. Well, this industry is already set up for a monthly schedule. Deliver 12 adventures of a certain title a year. So hell, could you imagine how much cross-referencing you could do? And these writers then could actually reference something from 1950 if the DC book. You know what I mean? Like you could get into all this craziness.
If Marvel and DC did that now, of course, what they'd be doing is they'd be starting a huge database of information and the ability to keep going in there. If they did it now, the marketing you could do where upon we say we've expanded the database this much. You know, we've done a new update in this month or coming next month, a new update, the database expands this bigger. Now we're including Quasar, right? And so you keep doing that and you keep promoting it. It's all about promotion. And you said it, and I've talked about this before, how these big corporations, they're not concerned with what's going on with the fan wants, what the fan demands, and they don't know how to get more information out there. Because I had the ability to go to, I've told some other guys this, I've had the ability to go to Manhattan recently, went to Times Square, and I ran around the corner because I knew that's where Marvel was. I found the Marvel offices, and yes, I understand it's the executive offices, and they're a little bit different. It's not necessarily a distribution area, but
Right.
it's just glass doors with the number. And I'm thinking, you are Marvel Entertainment around the corner from Times Square, where there's 2 Spider-Men, a Batman, and a Penguin guy. They're taking money for tips, making money, and you've got nothing. There's a hallway and a desk and a very polite and nice security guard. And other than that, there's no bronze statue of Stan Lee.
There's
No lobby, no museum
window.
pieces, nothing to say we're Marvel, we're awesome, give us your money and we'll get you a comic book or
No
something.
bronze statue of Stan Lee. Nothing.
Crazy. Yeah. But Disney does. Disney has it. They have a huge shop and it's up in lights and everything else. You're right there. You are prime to have, the real estate of being right around the corner from Times Square. Marvel it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, back on the downloadable books.
The database serves 2 purposes, Art, right? Because you get access. If you're working on Thor next month, they'll get you back end access to the digital book that so that you can kind of catch up if you know what's going on or what color he is this month or whatever. They give you that stuff. So the database is already created in a sense, but they could take it that step that you're talking, and then also, hey, creators get the back door. They can make sure they know what they're doing, what's going on in each book. Hey, I'm jumping on this book next month, so I'm going to go read up what they've been doing over there.
Right. And also, you're in the moment. So if you're in the moment of reading and you can just click a button versus getting in your car and driving somewhere to find a follow-up or whatever, you could read for hours.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You could read adventures for hours and not lose your place and never have to get up from your relaxing chair or whatever, eat your popcorn and your zingers. You don't have to get up. And also, like I was trying to say, like language. Like you can adapt all these things to different languages. You could hit a world market. All you have to do is interpret these books into different languages. So just like with the Marvel movies or the Disney stuff, where it says language, they have like the little what is that called? Index. You can have an index and you can have the different language, click on that, and then all your downloadable books could be in whatever language. So then all of a sudden it's not a regional thing, it's a world thing. You can sell books to everybody and they'll feel like it's tailored to them, because if they click that button, it's in their language. It's all in a way that they can understand and they can digest it. So the only one who hasn't chimed in is Zach about this idea. Zach's like, no, it'll never.
Well, no, it's just it's kind of interesting that you're saying all those things, because there are sites that kind of do something interesting like that.
Okay.
Like Webtoons specifically, they just adopted a new system where most of the time, for a long time, you could read every episode. Everything on there was free to read. Everything. You didn't even have to make an account, but you could read everything. And they still have that model, but what they did was they made a subscription service where you can. What they'll do is they'll put like a lot of forwarded episodes of that comic up, but if you want to read them before they get officially put out, you get a subscription and then you can read them early, and it's like 5 or 6 episodes in early, and and they're rocking it right now as far as being this kind of independent thing that's creating comics. Now, not everything in there is anime either. You Brian has his book on there. Jason Bierbaker has his book and stuff. And they pay you for that stuff. So it's just like it's a really interesting model that I don't know if, as far as superheroes, if it'd be a good format, because it's long and you have to scroll it and you don't get the whole. You can never do like a spread.
Right.
You know,
Tried it.
and yeah.
Top Cows tried it.
Mhm.
Stanley had a book that they've continued even after he's passed
Yeah.
on.
But I'm
It,
just saying, like, it's a good. It is a gateway though for
it
people to
is.
get into comics. It is a very good gateway for people because if my wife didn't like comics, doesn't like comics usually, but she'll read those.
Yeah, because they're kind of slice of life stuff. Is what's popular there.
Well, no, they have a lot of serious stuff too. Like there's they have a section of slice of life stuff where it's like, you know, like very short little, you know, web comics, but then they have series ones where if you go through it, it's like it's a full because I adapted parts of my comic to that, and I have lots of pages, and when I adapted it, it goes forever, and that's how some of these things go. They go forever. They're like full comic issues, like 24 pages, put into panels that are linked down, and it's one full issue, and they do that, and it works for what they're doing,
Well,
and it's a good gateway
part of
for especially younger readers.
Yeah, it's definitely good for young.
part of that.
Mhm.
It's easily digestible in small parts. Even the fact that there's something
Mhm.
big there because it's on your phone or even a tablet or something, you can easily go through and get a few of them, and then if some, while you're waiting, you know, elevator or in the store or whatever, and easily small digestible portions, and then you can stop it and you can come back to it later. Matter of fact, that's what the old ones. When we grew up, those comics were also like that. We got them; they were thin, they're packed full of a bunch of other material, you know, ads and the like, but they were still easily digestible, though they were part of a longer story.
Yeah. Yes. So do we think this is a viable future of comics? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Do you feel like this could be the savior of comics? I mean, how do you guys feel about this one, you know, direction?
The majority of webtoons, while granted I won't take anything away from it, but the majority of webtoons appeals to a certain demographic. The majority. But again, there is stuff there. There's cyber forces there, and I forget what Stan Lee's book was called that, you know, he was actually writing just before he passed, but there was something they were doing there. And it's not art driven. Well, it's art driven, but again, like he said, you would put up a panel, you know, every page is a minimum size. So you would do everything in a panel. It's like deconstructing a comic book is what it is.
Right.
And you know, I don't know.
Well, one thing that it when DeWolf was talking, or maybe it was Zach, but you would also, if somebody was going to be all in on these ideas, you know, like a connected universe or a connected brand of publishing, even if it's not, but there would have to be some kind of house that would have all these different books. There would have to be some kind of publishing type of entity, you know, an IP or a brand that you would have all these books under. But do you think if this was more viable and more people were getting into this and pursuing this, that possibly storytelling and crafting a story would then turn into a unique and different way of telling the paneled story? You know, because with electronics and with the computer and all these things, we're not beholden to pages. We're not beholden to the flipping, but, you know, the flipping left to right and all the traditional way. But most of these digital comics are all structured that way. And I don't feel that that's the best way to read these type of adventures on a pad or on you know, a device. I think that we could be a lot more creative as, you know, creative IP, you know, people like ourselves, you know, artists, that if we were left to work within these confines creatively, and this technology was all explained to us, this is how it works and everything like that, then we could actually start creating comic books with these programmed ideas in place. So then we don't have to be beholden to a normal comic book page structure, a book structure. We could then start structuring storytelling in various ways. Panels come in, they disappear, other ones come in. There's a lot of different things that you can do to enhance the storytelling, but it would all still be based on comic book panel, books. You'd still have to look at the image. You still have to read the dialogue. You'd have to still do all those things, but it could actually be, the presentation could be unique unto itself. And by just doing that, could that not revitalize? I mean, I'm getting, as a creative person myself, I get excited just thinking about this. Like you could break the panel, you could break, your confines of a comic book page. You can have things move, you can have things blow up to enhance. You can do all kinds of different, not that I want the animated comic books, because I think that's a lame idea. When they were trying to do like, where it would just kind of move like Watchmen or whatever. They just take the image and they just kind of move it like this. Not that at all. I'm not talking about that, because we have animation and we have cheap animation that's pretty darn good. I don't want to turn a comic book into animation. I still want it to be a comic book. But is that something that excites you guys as being creative people?
Yep.
It excited me when I first found out about it, but having used it and everything, it's not as exciting as it is. It feels like it's a different medium in a weird way. It's still comic, but it's like an offshoot of comic. Like if comic could be broken down into different comic genres of comics, it would be like this weird little category of its own.
Exactly. That's what we're talking about. The future, us moving to a new direction with things.
Yeah. And so it's just, I don't know though, as far as like it being the savior of everything. I imagine that if paper ever gets outlawed for any reason, that it will be. But as far as comics right now, I think everybody's going to still want that physical thing. And I actually think what Peter's doing is going to save comics in a bigger way, especially as it grows.
Well, let me back up. I'm not talking about an either or. I'm not talking about one going away and the other one replacing it, because things naturally happen like that regardless of what you want or what anybody wants. When I was a kid, records ruled the world. The records were everything for me. You're hard to press to find a record or a record shop. You know what I mean? So things do change. So, it doesn't necessarily mean that we can't have comic book shops, and it doesn't necessarily mean that we can't have hard comic books anymore. But maybe those could be more niche. They could be more the high-end collectibles, which we were talking about earlier.
I don't want to take it, I want to say something, but I don't want to take anything away from what Peter's doing, because I preach what Peter's doing all the time. But he doesn't have licenses. He doesn't have established characters. He has people pitching projects to him, and he either greenlights them or doesn't. It's a different thing than having consumable products of like the Batmans, the Supermans, the Green Lanterns and stuff. So where Peter's at and for where he needs to be is going to take years, right? So, you can't even go to your LCS and go, hey, I'm looking for the first issue of Elysium. You can't. So it's not that he's very successful in what he's doing. And I would not take anything away from him. I always retweet him. I always share his stuff, but this is not how you save comics, right? He's doing something that works for him and it's profitable for him and the creators, and that's all great. But if you really want to save comics, like Art is talking about, we're trying to save the bulk of our history of comics, right? Peter's having success at what he's doing, and that's great. I wish there were more Peters to pop up along the way, and then maybe they all join forces and create a universe, and maybe you have something where you could go back and get number one of something that came out 2 or 3 years ago, but it's just not going to be possible.
Yeah. Are you trying to get to what you were talking about earlier in your other stream? Is that what you're trying to get to, basically? Is the way we save comics is we all have to stop the bickering and just basically unite? and come together,
No,
or
that
that
was something totally separate. I mean, based on the conversations that the pontificators have had in the past, where we pointed out a lot of problems, I just thought that this would be interesting to maybe figure out where we could potentially go. So, like most things in life aren't just one thing.
Mhm.
There are multiple things that happen, but there's definitely a trend right now that everybody's, keying into, that the comics industry and the retailers are having a hard time.
Mhm.
So, but just to back up for a minute, all books, all magazines, all periodicals are having a hard time. It's not just comic books. So there is a disconnect from the written word in a book, a Cyberfrog book. You know what I mean? So people don't necessarily read. People don't necessarily go to bookstores and pick up books. Even some of the bigger book chains in my area have closed up. So this is not just a comic book problem. This is a printed medium problem.
You brought up maybe an answer, by the way. I don't know if everyone would buy into this, because some of these guys aren't the most congenial guys. But the reason why this is working is why? Because art, I can talk to you.
You mean commentary stuff? Yeah.
Right. Brad Noble can talk to you. He's talking to you right now. You've broken the veil between creator and consumer. And that's why we buy in, right? You're giving us updates. You're showing the work. Black and white looks beautiful. It looks way better than it did. It's something we want because we've bought into you.
Mhm.
And that's what this is now becoming. So it is, to say that there, you look at the money that say, because you held up Cyberfrog made, it's because he's broken that veil and he's created consumers, and that's, it's not going to help those guys unless they were to do it. It'd break the veil. But we're doing this because they wouldn't, because they shun the consumer. They talk bad to the consumer. That's why we've even decided to come over here and do it, is because you didn't treat the consumer right. Right?
Yeah. No,
I got to break in here.
Yeah, let's go in this direction, because I like the direction that you're going in. So not necessarily because we got off on a save the industry. I didn't want this to be like we're going to save the industry. We're just kind of projecting where things could go, and maybe things where this type of comic entertainment can be more viable, and maybe more profitable, get to more people's hands. So what were we going to say, DeWolf?
Well, I got something to say on both of those points, because first off, we've talked about Marvel DC. You can't save them if they, want. We can't. If they're going to use bad practices from marketing, from the art, writing, whatever it is, you can't force them them to do that. And we already know that. That's what this is all about. Once again, this whole movement here. So that all being said, you can't save them. We can pitch out great ideas, but whatever, So then it comes down to, how does the whole business work? Well, VHS, and then Netflix and movie theaters. Do we still have movie theaters? We do, because people still want to go to the movie theater. We're going to have comic books because people still want to hang on to and hold a comic book. There's still something to be said there. So that being the case, when you look at that way, there's also what do people want, right? What is the consumer demand? And we've talked about various things here. You talked about a great idea, that is the digital concept and how it can move around. There's the webtoon, which people have done things now because you just scroll up. They do make panels and ways of their storytelling specific to that, where you see a panel and then something of that panel kind of falls downward and on the screen into another panel. These guys are taking that medium and making it their own, making art specific to that. And people are going there and people are reading those, but you're not always going to get everybody. So someone wants to download, someone wants to get it on their phone, someone on their iPad, somebody wants it in their hands. Some people want to watch live streams, and some people want 10-minute videos. So what do you do to save something, or heck, to make money? You give them what they want. So I think part of this whole movement, I think the future of comics is going to be one in which you take all media as possible. I'm over here, Todd. I'm on this side. If you're doing that.
No, I
Um,
was looking at my wife.
oh, you're looking at a VIP. My bad. So it's all about going for every avenue possible, from my perspective, to multimedia your comic book, and that's what part of this is. Looking at that concept of from the art, from the book to the creator, and so that's part of the multimedia experience. And I think fans are going to eat that up if we continue doing that and keep moving things forward. And one of the problems for that is just footprint. You know, having a big footprint and having optics and eyes on your work is the biggest thing. And when you have a big name that, like CG is kind of become, and you can tie into it, that what you were talking about, unity makes a bigger footprint. Otherwise, you just have a bunch of little creators out here, and we may have little Picassos, little George Lucases out here, and we've got to have their works out and available for people to find them, and then other people, such as all of us here, being able to promote them, so that eventually quality and merit is going to rise to the guys to the top, and we can all then enjoy these good comics.
Well, you need a big breakthrough, like Todd was talking about Peter earlier.
Peter.
Everything could change tomorrow for Peter if he had a breakthrough hit. Everything could change overnight. So the reason Comicsgate is as big is we had Zach, not the Zach in the chat.
Yeah.
but
the Zach is not even really a Zach. The other Zach.
Yeah, the other Zach. That's not really a Zach. Zach Attack. And then we had EBS. Those were big early successes. And then successes that followed were still, by indie crowdfund standards, were very, very high. You know what I mean? So these are the things that tend to break down those barriers, and those are the things that then. This is the problem I had with Image as well. When there's that type of success, a lot of times there's infighting, and then there's destructive behavior. But no one talks about how we can expand the market. We have money now. We have resources. We have these things. So why did Image not have TV commercials? Why did Image not have a multi-platform? Why did they not have an advertising campaign? They were selling millions of copies a month. They were making, within one studio, could make $3 to $5 million a month for like 4 or 5 comic books. Well, when you start generating that kind of money, and to back up, Marvel Comics and DC Comics, where everything was selling really well at the time, they didn't do it either. But I wasn't over there at that time. I was at Image, and the Image office was right across the hall from Extreme, Rob Liefeld's Extreme. So I hung out with those guys, and they had people that were promotion. They had people that were marketing, licensing guys, or not licensing, but marketing guys. And it's like, what changed? You know what I mean? They went back to what Todd was talking about, like the practice of multi-covers or gimmicks or whatever, but they weren't really expanding the market. They weren't trying new, unique things. They had the money, but they weren't really putting effort into that. So,
I mean, one thing they did do, obviously, is they found talent and cultivated it. They did do that. If anything that I look at an Image, other than the good books that came out of there, is they cultivated a lot of good talent that is still around today. So there was that, right?
Yeah.
And they gave those guys sort of a, here, go for it kind of thing. They weren't in their business and giving them that editorial stuff. Oh, no, you draw what we want you to draw, and you're going to do that for
no agenda. Yeah.
Right. They pitched them something. They're like, yeah, you want to do that? Go ahead. That's fine. Now that's that exploration that is missing also from comics, right? Where editorial is like, no, we're writing. Don't get me wrong here, but we're writing for what could be a future TV show. We want you to make this a hit. We want to take Swamp Thing and put him here. in Canada and fight, maple leaves or so. No, you don't get to do that anymore. Exploration is completely gone in comics. It is, and that's the unfortunate thing, because if you really want to save it, you'll let the guys who have passion about the product, the characters, take them where they want to take them. And you've closed the doors on that. And like you talked about one time, I don't know if we did this on air or not, so I hope I'm not saying something out of school here, but you talked about DC not letting people become fan favorites so that image never happens to them ever again. That started a long time ago when the image thing, those guys left. They were like, uh-oh, see what happened? And it almost happened twice, because there was talk about the Kuberts and they were going to do this with a bunch of other guys, and it didn't happen because they used money to keep them tied up, but it was close.
Well, yeah, Marvel was signing those guys to exclusives. Yeah, because they didn't want the same thing to happen.
Yeah, they actually released a card set of their universe that was about to happen, and it never. Do you remember that card set?
No.
No, you don't remember the Kuberts? And yeah, this was in the 90s. They almost jumped ship with like 6 other guys.
No. Are you talking about the Dynamic Forces, the Dynamite Universe card set? No.
Okay. These were all creator-owned characters that they did cards for.
That's what
and
this.
Everyone. Yeah.
I think we're talking about the same thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because like they had all like top tier artists, and so they had IP, whatever IP ideas they had. They had the card that would represent that IP, and then on the back would have like a trading card would explain it. And so yeah, I think it was Dynamite or Dynamic Forces that put out a set like that, and that was in the 90s, right? In the
Right.
mid 90s. Yeah, I think that's the same card set. Yeah, that's actually a pretty good idea. Let's do that again.
Right. But it was something that stifled in it. Like you talked about, like I said, is we can't have the artists or creators get too big because they might do this again.
Yeah.
And so what you do, you don't allow them to do what they're passionate about. Hey, I think I got a sequel for such and such book that would happen in the 90s.
Right.
No, we're not really, exploration and all that stuff is sort of, from what I hear in editorials, kind of gone. You've talked about bringing ideas, and Aaron Lepresti talked about bringing ideas to DC and say, hey, I really want to do this. And they're like, well, no. And they keep you sort of a fill-in guy, or keep guys that would. I think Aaron's a great artist, and his work on Wonder Woman Conan was awesome, absolutely awesome. And you know what? There wasn't anything he couldn't have done after that. He could have done anything. It would have been awesome. And you know what? Don't fill in over here, fill in over there, fill in over there.
Yeah. They give them enough to keep them there. And then because Aaron and I did a run on Detective Comics, but it was a small run. If we would have stayed on that for a year and a half, we would have established a following. We could have maybe even brought that book up in sales, but they didn't do it. It's kind of like we're in Star Wars universe, and we have like those robotic restraining bolts like they put on R2-D2 and 3PO. So creatively, we have restraining bolts if you work for Marvel and DC, and you can only go so far because they want to control you and move you in the direction that they want. So things have become crazy micromanaged to the degree of like what you're saying, Todd, where you stifle creativity. If you're not open to it and you don't encourage it, it's not going to happen. But to get back into what we're doing here, it's perfect for us because we don't have those restraining bolts. Who gives a crap, right?
Right.
We'll do whatever we want. And you know what? The people in the chat, the people buying the books, the people supporting these things, they're going to decide whether something gets a voice or not. It's not going to be Diamond. It's not going to be a retailer. It's not going to be DC or Marvel. It's going to be the people over in the chat. It's going to be us. And that's why this is exciting times. So do you guys want to try to talk about this for a little bit and then wrap it up, like the exciting times that we're in right now with these independent IPs? And I know Zach's got one. I know Todd. And DeWolf, you have one in development as well, right?
I most certainly do. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So you guys
Yeah.
want to talk about the future of maybe what we're doing, you know, and not that necessarily this is the savior of comics, but you know, I just want to hear you guys' thoughts. So Zach, you haven't talked in a while.
Well, I'm just excited about everything that's going on. The support and just this whole entire indie revival movement that's going on is just super exciting, because it's like it's giving all these creatives that have had all these ideas that they've just been thinking about and wanting to do forever. It's giving them a chance to say, do it. Just go out and do it. And I haven't seen this many original comics and ideas being produced in a very, very long time, you know. And I'm just excited about all the work that's being done. I'm excited about all the stories that are being produced, and how I don't have to worry about if someone trying to shove their ideas down my throat and stuff, you know, and that I can just read a comic and enjoy it and have fun. I'm excited because it's fun now. It's fun again, you know, and that's the big thing. It's fun. So
And comic books should be fun.
Yeah.
I remember I had a conversation with a DC editor that was giving me a bunch of crap, and I told him, I said, "Why are you making this hard?" And it's like, "What do you mean?" I go, "I've been doing this for a long time. It doesn't have to be this hard. You're micromanaged and you're busting my hump for no reason at all." And then he's like, "Whatever," you know, he's getting all in my face. And I said, "Listen, man, I could do things that make me a lot more money. I could go and do illustration. I mean, I could do advertising. I could go in, there's LA's right up, you know, up the freeway here. I could go there. I could do advertising and kill. I have friends that are in advertising. They kill, right? So I don't need to take this crap. The reason I'm doing comics is because I love comic books." And I told them, I said, "If this isn't fun, and we're not having fun doing this at the rate we're making, you know, the money that we're making, then why the hell are we doing it? If we're not having fun, it doesn't make any sense." You know, because part of this is a lifestyle. We sit at home, we draw, we hang out, you know, we tell our stories. And if it's not going to be fun, then I could have a 9 to 5. I could go and I could make a crap more money than I am right now. But I don't do it because that's not where my heart's at. So I agree. That enthusiasm, Zach, that excitement level, that's what's going to bring people in. That's what's going to excite people. And that could possibly be the renaissance that we're talking about. How about you, DeWolf?
Renaissance. You hit the word right there. Yeah, I really think that this is a movement that I think it was a long time in coming, and part of it is technology, because we are now using the technology that is at our fingertips to do this right here. And part of that, which you've talked about, is using technology in comic books. And we do that through marketing. You know, before you couldn't do this. You had to pass out flyers in your local area, and now flyers can go through Twitter all across the entire world now. So everything is the market. We talk a lot about things almost in a bad way on how things are, and how can we save this and do that. There's so much at our disposal today. And one of those things that's at our disposal is this free idea of communication, where I can talk to an artist, and that artist can say, "I like your ideas. Let's get together and do something." And a writer can talk to someone else and say, "Hey, I like your art, and let's together and we'll do something." And one of the things that isn't talked about a lot is how much of an investment that is. Every person involved in this takes work, and it is. But you were right. It's fun though. So the type of work that you're doing is that impassioned type of a work, and it's fun to do, and yet at the same time, you know that you're investing in it. You may not get back as much as you put in, except on that aspect of how fun this is. And it goes for the audience as well. Everyone in the chat, they're also investing time to pay attention to shows like this, and it's entertaining. There's so much to do in the world, but there's only places like this in the independent comic world where you can get together and share ideas like that. And that, I think, this is part of the future. It truly is part of the future.
Yeah, I agree. How about you, Todd? Todd 2, Todd 1?
Well, you know what? You have quite a big audience here, and I just want to point out something.
To hit the like button.
Well, right, hit the like button and share and all that and notifications because we do this every Friday, and this is actually one of my favorite shows to do. But
Same.
at Indicom TV, what we've been trying to do is create a place where anyone could come, even if it's only while you're campaigning your book, and use our audience, help it grow. You always push traffic wherever you want. There's no rules on where you push traffic. Push them back to your channel where you're going to do something else there, something different than what you do here, because I'm always trying to help out this community. No labels, no affiliations. Your book, if your book is good, I'll spot it and I'll talk about it. I do it all the time, turn people on to books that nobody else sees, whether it's because I'm more present over on Facebook than I am here, whatever it is. I do this all the time. If we really want this to sort of thrive, because we're surviving, right? But if you want it to thrive, you got to start thinking like this is a business. This is not a hobby.
Yes.
Unfortunately, when I go to these like campaigns and I see that the goal is 3,000, the first thought I have is 3,000? Who's making money? Nobody's making any money that way. You could have a hobby and you could print your book and do all that. It's great because you'll probably move them more at like a church convention in your local town than you will on Indiegogo. But if you really, your heart's in this is what you want to do, realize it's going to take money to put in to get money out. This is not for the faint of heart when it comes to that. And you know what? I see so many talented people that have great looking books, great product, great artists. But you know what? You're going to have to get eyes on them. If you're not going to post about your book 3 or 4 times a day, what do you think's going to happen? It's like you have to be P.T. Barnum. So if you're an artist and you're drawing a book and you're campaigning, I feel for you because that's not going to help. What you need to do is get your book done, get it to the point where it's ready to go. It's off to the colorist because what's the colorist going to talk about, right? So you get it off to the colorist, then you start campaigning.
Yeah, what the colorist going to talk about?
Then you start campaigning with your writer, your artist, your team. And you get out there and you do this day. Social media can take 3 to 4 hours a day to actually do it right, and you got to give it that kind of attention.
Yes, I totally agree. And you know what? It's probably easier for you guys, to be honest, than it is for me, because I'm used to hiding behind somebody else that advertises. You know what I mean? Most of my career, all my career has been, I just sit, I do it, I turn it in, and then they promote it, they do whatever, that thing. So this last year has been quite an eye opener, and I understand it intellectually that I have to get out there. And the only way Black and White or Chrono Mechanics is going to succeed is me. I'm the voice. I'm the only life that this thing is ever going to have. If I don't say something, I don't speak up, I don't, get the word out, it's not going to happen. So that's the biggest hurdle. You guys have come up with it kind of more. I think most of you guys have more of an independent background than I do. So you're kind of already used to, trumpet blowing and saying, look at me. This is not really who I am. So I've come out, of the shadows a little bit, and I realized more and more that, like what Todd was saying, it has to be this, because there's no Marvel and DC that's going to do it for us. There's no entity that we can hide behind, no matter how good these books are. Like you said, Todd, there's some really good books that nobody even knows exist because they don't have a platform, or they haven't created a platform for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So
you are the machine. You have to be that machine every day.
Yes. So anybody out there that's listening, you have to have a good product. But if you're going to be in this indie and in a contemporary indie world like this, you don't have an Image I, you don't have a Marvel M, you don't have a DC, you don't have those things. All you have are your initials. Mine's AT. So yeah, that's all you have is your own brand, and you have to promote your brand, and you have to get the word out. And yeah, so do you think that this is not necessarily what we're doing right now is the savior of the industry? Because I don't want to be that, kind of broad with things, because I don't really know, and I don't want to make it seem like that, we're doing some kind of like massive major work here, that's going to change things. But from what I have seen, and then you guys can share, what I have seen is all my industry buddies, and I saw this when I went to San Diego Con, over the summer, people coming up to me and asking, how did you do it? What's Indiegogo about? YouTube, all of these things. So this is definitely inspiring a lot of people. There's a lot of eyes on what we're doing right now. So how do you guys feel about this? Do you think that maybe this is a way to market and sell comic books?
Well, it is, right? But when it happens, right, if the sort of the leaning over, the thing that will happen will, the distributor will go away. When the stores go away, distributor will go away, and this will be what you'll be stuck with. You'll be artisanal comics, boutique comics, creator-owned comics, creator fulfilled comics, and they'll use that to go, oh, the nail in the coffin was Indiegogo and Kickstarter. And it won't be wrong, but they'll put it in a way that it's like dark and negative, and it's not. It's not.
Right.
Because we decided to go away from what you were doing, do it on our own, and you know what? Everyone else will too. When they see that the slice of pie, hey, this ain't so bad. This is kind of like what I do, what I make over here at DC. When they see that, they'll come themselves eventually.
Yeah. And they're creating something that may have been in their heart since they were kids, like when Eric Larson did Savage Dragon. That was a concept he had since he was a kid. You know what I mean? So some of these ideas that we're presenting to people are ideas that we've had since we were children. So it is really cool that there's a viable platform now, and that's why I'm here. And that's the big difference is there's always been independence. There's always been an independent business, but whether it was lucrative or not, that's another thing. The reason I'm here, and like what you said, Todd, it's for a lot of people that are established professionals, it's almost it can be a lateral move. So you could be Batman, but if you've been doing Batman for 20 years, been there, done that. But if you do have something that you've had an idea for a story or a character since you were a kid, or maybe even for just the last 5 years, this is something that this stuff burns in you. Like, I have to do this. I have to do Chrono Mechanics. I have to do black and white because I tried not to do it. And I ended up spending, 20 years at Marvel DC. Not that it was bad, experience, but every night I was still drawing these characters. I was still writing adventures. I was still doing these stories, and they never went away. And I know that this burns for a lot of people. So this could be viable, and this might just be the tip of the iceberg. So what do you guys think?
Zach?
I hope it is. We hope it is. I hope this doesn't fade away. I hope it keeps gaining traction and more people. Well, and they're forced to look at what we're doing. It's because I think we've made enough numbers as far as sales and whatnot, where the big two and everything are looking at what we're doing, and they're noticing that we're being successful. You know what I mean? And it's not just hobbies that are getting funded. It's these really huge comics like Cyberfrog, and it's the big two have to take notice when something is that successful, and they have to say, wait, maybe we're doing this wrong. And I hope that I don't know. I don't know if I hope that they take notice and they change, or if we just gain more people, like the actual individuals that are working there, like put down their pencils and say, hey, I can go do that too.
Yeah, I think that's happening. You're going to see more of that, Zach. And I'm already seeing more YouTube platforms, with people like ourselves and things like that. So within this last year, do you guys see this trend continuing and building and going up, or do you see it kind of flatlining, or do you think it's going down?
No, I think it'll go up because bigger name talent will come, right? They're seeing some things over here, obviously, that, whoa, look what this guy did. Whoa.
There's
And there's egos in this industry, right? Tons of
Yeah.
egos. So they're probably going, I could do better than him. He only drew
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
right? That's okay. That's fine. So when they come, don't be afraid that more and more pros come, because they'll bring different eyes into the marketplace, right? On Indiegogo, you'll see Deeper Wallets, you'll see Hollywood, and one time one of these Indiegogo's books that maybe is on issue 4 or 5, and Hollywood goes, you know what? We want to make that a movie. You're going to see something change in the industry like you've never seen before.
Well, you have Sean Gordon Murphy
Yep.
coming into Indiegogo.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I think
but
this,
go ahead.
I have
Go ahead.
another analogy. I think this is also like microbrews, because for a while you saw the things around on the shelves, right? There was a few of them, right? And no one talked about microbrews. Everyone just drank the big three. And
Right.
yet a lot of people got tired of that, and they keep drinking it, and it was kind of bland, like the big three are today. They're kind of
Right.
bland. So people then started using some of these microbrews, started drinking those. It's a consumed product, just like what we have here. And then what happened was people started sharing it, and then people started talking about it. You saw a few of them get into actual stores, be distributed, and then they started taking off. And then the whole concept of word of mouth started going on. People started talking more about porters and stouts instead of just other things, and IPAs. And as this started, now you had all these different genres, and then you had different things to drink, and different tastes and desires. And so here we go. There's Action Artist. He's drinking one right now, and now it's become a huge business. Microbrews are now pushing in onto those guys. And what are the big three doing? They're now making their own special lager and their special porter, and they change their model. So this is going to be going the same way. It's going to slowly build up. Some big things are going to happen. There's going to be big markets. The market's going to expand, and you'll have more opportunity. More people will start looking for comics like this, and then eventually the market's going to grow bigger, and of course the big ones are likely going to change if they're smart. But who are they?
Do you think the big two are going to start doing things like what we're doing right now?
No.
No.
I think they're idiots still.
On Marvel's
Oh, no.
channel, they do a cooking show. What are you kidding me?
Yep.
Yeah, they got no idea. They're completely disconnected.
It's their leadership, though. It is their leadership,
Yeah.
and the fact that they decided that they were just going to let every single disqualified person that should ever be in comics just lead them, and then get rid of everybody that actually matters. They're like, oh, you're old, you don't matter, and it's like, what are you talking about? I would, if I had Art as my manager, it'd be great. He would, because he would know exactly what to tell me what to do, and I bet like I would be producing way more and much more because of all the years of experience he has. I wouldn't hire my 22-year-old student to lead me into the future. I'd hire Art.
To what he's talking about, Art, right? This is kind of what happened to DC. They decided to move from New York to Burbank, right? So all these guys that were, they didn't want to give up being in comics, but they weren't really going to move from Fairfield to Burbank and live there. So you lost the genius editorial of so many guys who decided, we'll take the out clause, right? The retirement clause, right? And what you lost experience, you lost leadership, you lost so much in that one move. It's created such a trickle effect that, like he said, you got young guys in an editorial. assistants who are now line editors. It's terrible.
Yeah, young guys isn't necessarily a bad thing,
No.
but you need to get people in there that that aren't agenda driven. And I don't think it's necessarily the young guys coming in. I think it's upper management that are basically hiring yes men. They're hiring puppets to go carry out their agendas. And so the one thing that I'm not sure is where the agenda is coming from. Like if it's coming from like Disney, you know, if that it's on high there, or if it's coming from Warner Brothers and then trickles down, you know, to the comic book producing, you know, company, Marvel, DC. I'm not really sure where the agenda is coming from, but I don't want to get off on too much of a tangent. But you do think these more direct market, communicating with like people in the chat right now, bringing our word, our IPs directly to the people, that this is a sustainable trend right now, that this for the, I don't know, next 5-10 years maybe could be a viable platform for us all to share and to get at least to break the cycle of the big two, you know, to give the comic book viewing public a different point of view, different ideas, different voices, different faces to the landscape. So where do you guys see this going? Let's project that and then maybe wrap it up.
Real quick. I only think this will work if we can somehow figure out a way to get the toxicity into at least manageable levels, because no one new is going to want to come do what we do if they know about how much toxicity is just within the inner circle of things. And it's ridiculous.
It's a lot of baggage, yes.
Yeah, it's very ridiculous and stuff. And you know, hate and anger and toxicity is just, it's destructive and it doesn't help anybody. So it's, you know, if we want to survive, we need to look at ourselves and say, and look at each other and be like, well, we're in this together. That support each other. Go back to that support ring and stop trying to hurt one another for really no reason. There's like, if you look at it, it's like no reason.
Exactly. It has to become comics great and not comics gate, because comics gate came with a bad connotation.
But let me back up there, okay? I'm going to say I had a problem with Comicsgate, just the baggage that came with it from the get-go. Mm-hmm. Before I left DC, before I came in, I had a conversation with Ethan. I had a conversation with Mike S. Miller. Okay, so I signed off on it because their whole thing was like, yeah, it's negative, but we're embracing the negative, and then we're spinning it. So it's kind of like it's kind of ironic, right? So then over the time that I've spent, I realized that the CG is controversial, and that is what's also helping to break down the barriers. For right or wrong, it's breaking down the barriers. There is drama, and there is this aspect to it. It's controversial. It's like the Image founders, when we left, we pissed everybody off, right? There was nobody happy about it, you know. It sent ripples through the industry. Forbes magazine wrote an article of how Marvel stock went down and how viable Image Comics was. So these things, there's always controversy attached to this. The Joker movie, there's controversy attached to that movie. So the thing is, like, to harken back to what Zach was saying, as long as you can manage it, as long as you can harness it, as long as you can use it in a direction that is going to lead you somewhere, in a not necessarily positive, but in a destination that can become positive. You know, like it itself may not be. You know, like cops hanging out at a movie theater when you go to see Joker is not a positive experience. But you go see the movie, you realize it's a great movie. You go tell friends, and you enjoy yourself for 2 hours. You know what I mean? That's the bottom line. So I have embraced and I have come to terms with that. It is controversial, but the Comicsgate stuff, the name, the baggage that comes with it is not the problem right now. The problem is, just like Image Comics, it's people. People are people, and egos get involved. And the thing is, I explained all this earlier today on my live stream, is when you have people like all of us, we might be fundamentally different in every way. But as far as putting our comic book IPs out there right now, right this moment, we're all in lockstep, right? We're all in lockstep. But that could change in a heartbeat. You know, somebody could say something, somebody could do something. It could change. So
ultimately, though, Art, it looks bad when you begin as fighting the other side, right? We're lobbing shots over there. Now we're lobbing shots at our best friend.
Well, that's where I'm going with this. What I'm trying to say is, like, when there's camaraderie, when there's a shared goal and a direction, people tend to merge together. Have you ever been in a line for anything, a movie or a concert or something, and you're in line for an hour, and then you end up making friends with the guy behind you or in front of you? The reason is there's a shared experience, there's commonality. You may never talk to those people again, but for that hour that you're waiting in line, they're your best friend, right? So you could be fundamentally in opposition on everything possible, but at that moment in time, you're in lockstep. You're trying to get through this horrible experience for the hour to get to the movie or the concert or whatever. So whenever there's emergency situations, you watch everybody put petty differences aside. They all move to get the kids out of the fiery house or whatever. You know what I mean? Like people bond together in crisis. They bond together when there's a shared goal. When Comicsgate started a year ago, there was a shared goal. Nobody knew where this was going to go, and nobody had crazy huge success. But what happens in time is people get successful, their egos get involved, and then they veer off the path. They veer off the path. It happened with Image Comics. When the Seven and all of us were all in lockstep and building something and had a shared goal, it all worked. What happened is everybody started becoming convinced they didn't need each other anymore. They don't even need the Image Eye. They have their own studios. They have their own things. They don't need anybody anymore. So what happens is people go in their own direction because they feel they've become self-sufficient or whatever. And I just want to back up. I'm not making a distinction if it's right or wrong. I'm not. I'm just talking, this is how things are. So people go in their own direction. That's all fine, right? You can be friends with somebody in the line for an hour, and then after you see the movie, you'll never see them again, right? So things like that happen. I'm almost done. And so then what you have is you have shared commonality. We're all moving in a direction. If it works for me, it works for you, it works for everybody. But then what's happening now is that it's not okay just to go in your own direction. People are blasting the other one. People are taking other ones to task and bad-mouthing and doing things like that, which also happened at Image Comics because I was there. So this is not new. This is how things are. This is how things always will be. This is how people are. So the thing is, if we can not burn this way of doing business down, if we can stay civil enough and we can be positive, and enough of us are moving in the right direction and then bringing people in, like you were saying, Todd, people from the industry, older people, established professionals, and then younger people, we're bringing them up and we're moving in that direction, it will always keep building. And then people will leave, people will come in, people will leave, people will come in. But the negativity and the crap throwing, I think, is potentially bad. So I know you wanted to say something to Wolf. What was it?
It goes with what you're saying, and I said that I'll be the one to say what's right and wrong, because that is common decency and respect. Because what has happened is right from the get-go, again, the left SJW types, they do not use common decency and respect. And so it was basically thrown right back at them in the same way. Let's lob those missiles over at them without any common decency and respect. And when you've gone ahead and done that, then when they were gone so much, and then you're trying to work with your friends, I think the loss of the ability to recognize that common decency and respect the human being for being a human being, like you said, people are people. And then we forgot that even they're no longer even people. They're an icon and a couple of bits on the screen, and so then that started tearing it down from the inside out. And so I think just people need to realize when we're working with each other, there's a lot of things that can happen. There's misunderstandings that can happen. Feelings can get in the way. Put the feelings aside. Deal with people. Take a deep breath and say, what is a more decent and respectful way of dealing with each other? That's that portion of the comicscape. And then the great art and the great stories that are coming out will just drive things forward for us.
So anybody?
Boom.
Boom. Mic drop.
Mic drop. We got to get to another show.
The mic drop show. Yeah. So, I mean, I can tell that Todd is biting his tongue a little bit. I think you have some things that you want to say. Is it? Do you want to say them or?
No. That I think along the way we'll have a show that probably centers around some of that. You know what I mean? CG bad kind of thing, and we'll save it because I don't want to overtalk. I think we did get on the point, right? I think we've really talked this point really well, so I don't want to drag it to a different place because that's a good show.
Okay. Well, we'll do another show, and you can talk to me off, and we can see if we can work out a future program. So thank you guys so much. Thanks everybody in the chat. I think unless anybody has anything to add, I think we covered a lot of stuff. We had a good show. So.
Oh, and little plug. Gary's hosting auctions tonight, so if you want to get some cool pieces, go head over there. I have 4 pieces that I'm going to be doing fairly affordable for people that want some original art that is in an affordable range. So,
right. Get over there if you have money to spend. If you don't have money to spend and you want to learn something, come to IndieCom TV. We have a huge guest, very popular channel. She has over 10,000 followers. Her name is DanFan29, and she does skits and she does all kinds of things on her channel. Really cool. So we're about to head over there and welcome her to IndieCom TV.
Oh, very good, very good. How about you, DeWolf?
Inktober. You guys are doing Inktober. I'm watching all these artists doing some of these great things. I want to get involved. So as a writer, there's only so much I can do though. So I'm going to be doing a promotional piece. It's the first page of the volume of Book of Elves. I'm going to be doing that live stream. I believe I'm going to be doing that in conjunction with IndieCom TV so that we can get that nailed down. The inking on the page is going to be old school, just like you guys putting ink on the page with the typewriter itself, putting ink down on the page, getting page 1 of a script done. And as a promotional piece, we'll be putting that together. And I think it's going to be exciting and something new for as a writer to do, working with all you guys. And I appreciate the ability to just be with you and participate.
Oh, I like your old school typewriter there in the corner too. That's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, thank you. Typey, the guy says.
Most kids probably don't even know what that is. It's like, what the hell is that thing? It's a key.
It's got a USB port. Never mind.
Oh, it doesn't. Is it really? It's just
no.
Old school. That is an old school typewriter, right?
Yeah.
Man, I hated it as a kid. You type and then you like 2 letters would bind at the same time, and then you have to scoot them back, and it's a pain in the neck. Yeah, you have to know what you're doing to work with those things. Yeah. It's all timing. All right. Well, very good, you guys. So this has been the Pontificators. And, well, Zach, other than the plug for Drawn and Quartered, not Drawn and Quartered, but auctions on Gary's channel, what about your book? Is it in demand?
No, it didn't make it that far, but that's okay. I'm neck deep in working on it, scheduled for a February release. Yeah. But if you want to find more of my work, you can find me on Twitter at Zach_DB.
Well, very good. And you're going to put the book out regardless, right?
Yeah, no, it was mostly just to see who was interested early on, kind of to figure out things. And I was planning on making anyways, regardless. But it was just more like I have some of it done. Let's put it on Indiegogo, see where it goes. But I'm still making it anyways. It's my passion project. So
Here's the title so people know.
World
Zach
of Golma.
Zach became kind of known a little late in the process, right? Now
Yeah.
he's seen as, obviously, to me, extraordinary artist, right?
Good,
And so he's got a lot, legions of fans are now, but he didn't have them at the right point. So I think the next time you see this campaign, sky's the limit.
Yeah, and well, I'm also going to do a lot of pre-campaigning for it, so everybody will know exactly what I'm doing and exactly when I'm doing it.
You have to, because I used to think like, oh, I don't want to be repetitive. I always want to seem like I'm going in like new territory, but you have different people in your streams all the time. You have a lot of different people coming and going, so sometimes you have to be repetitive. You have to keep saying, stuff like Chrono Mechanics has a pre-launch page. And we are going to go live next week. It'll probably be Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. We're not sure. We're in the OK process now. Last time it took us, I think, a day to 2 days to get the OK to launch. But so we're in the OK process right now. So as soon as we get the go ahead, we're going to be launching Chrono Mechanics. But in the meantime, go to the pre-launch page, sign up, and we have exclusive goodies just for the people that sign up for the pre-launch page. And my wife and I, Pamela, who's writing the book with me, we have talked about some really cool stuff that we are going to get in your hands. And it will probably be one of those mystery tier, not mystery tier, what do they call it, where they're hidden tiers, like a hidden tier that we're going to send your way. So so go check that out. And so were you saying, Todd, that you're going to do your show later, right after this?
We're headed there right when we're done.
Okay. So go check out.
Anycom TV's on live right now with this huge guest that we got.
All right, so we'll let Todd go, and we'll shut down. So thanks again to everybody in the chat. Thanks to Zach, DeWolf, and Todd. Thanks for coming in. We do this every week, every Friday. Well, we try every Friday. Sometimes it's a bit hard to schedule. We severely we missed one of our brothers, and I got to look into this. Maybe after I sign off, you guys can help me out. If we can get 5 people or 6 people in here. That might be a little hard to keep it focused, but we can try 6.
6 is tops.
So you can do 6. Okay, so maybe
the version, you might actually already have. No, you haven't bought it. But if you buy the version, I think you can increase it.
Yeah, I've been looking into that because they have that discount. Like if you do now, you can get like a discounted rate or something like that. So I'm looking into Yardstream and subscribing. So or StreamYard. So very good, you guys. Have a great Friday. Enjoy Todd's show, and Zach is going to be selling some artwork. It's on Gary's channel, right?
Yep, Gary's channel.
Yeah. And DeWolf will be typing on his old school typewriter.
Typey.
I will.
Typey. All right, you guys. Take care. See you later.